1, any second now, should be live.
Hello, welcome, and thank you for joining us for our Q&A. Fix global warming and repair our planet. So this is where we talk about global warming and talk about your questions, what you want to discuss. In particular, what's causing it, what the threat is, what's happening, and very important, what we can do about it. So my name is Charles Appleby. I'm the founder of NoCO2.org. We plant trees, plant enough trees, and you too can go carbon neutral. So I'm joined on the panel today by my good friend Linda Meehan and Gary, who's our Master of Ceremonies. So Linda, if I can hand over to you to just introduce yourself. And
Sure.
Linda, you said that you're particularly interested in doing something to heal our planet. So as part of introducing yourself, if you could tell us a little bit about how you think about healing the planet, that would be absolutely brilliant. So Linda, over to you.
Sure. Well, thanks for the invite, Charles. I'm thrilled to be here. I think this has really been a journey of self-discovery. There's been, quite a process that I've been involved in, and I've lost the video here, of really understanding what it is that I can do to contribute, and almost getting myself into a depressive state of, well, there is nothing I can do. This thing just seems too big. But having started really educating myself with an open mind, I've become quite enlightened to all the positive changes that we can make, no matter how small or at a community or global level. And I just feel it's important to get excited about it, to get passionate about it, and to educate people, because I think a lot of our resistance to actually trying to participate is we don't know where to start. So my contribution, I hope, is in learning all the different methods that we can use to make a positive contribution to healing the world. I believe it starts a lot with ourselves and our own healing, and educating and really spreading the message.
So Linda, thank you so much for that. That's really amazing. So how to contribute, what can we do? I think that will resonate with a lot of people. So if you're online somewhere and you've got a view on that, then do please chip in and make a comment, have something to say. Otherwise, Gary, over to you. Do you want to kick us off with the first question?
Yeah, we actually, Charles, you've got the question written there, yeah? Is that correct?
I've got the question written.
So what my journey has been is Charles has taken me along this path of discovery of how we heal the planet. So I have been educated by Charles, and this is my absolute pleasure to try and empower people. I feel Linda's saying that it seems so vast, it seems so big, and we really can feel out of control, but there's lots of things that we can do, like plant trees or recycle or turn the heating down at home. Charles, have you got that question prepped? And I'll read the live ones.
We got a question that came in that I sent you earlier, yeah?
Yeah, setting up the live stream has changed my screen somewhat. So if you've got that to hand, that would be really helpful. Otherwise, look.
I had it to hand. Okay, I've got it back. I've got it back again now. Okay, so Shanaz has been reading this book, which I've not heard of, Confessions of an Economic Hitman by someone called John Perkins. I've not heard of this. So what she says, it's alarming that big corporates have got away with disturbing natural ecosystems in areas such as the Amazon, where corporate greed has resulted in natural ecosystems being totally destroyed, ecosystems that are fundamental to the well-being of our planet. What can be done to shift this kind of behavior? Okay, well, let's ask Linda to, having just read the question, Linda, would you like to kick off on that one? And Stanley, I know this is one of your favorite subjects. You might like to chip in on this as well. So Linda, first go to you, if you would.
Yeah, sure. Okay, so I'm just thinking about the corporate. It's a basic economic principle of supply and demand. So, I mean, the question is quite right. There's been a very extractive, exploitative nature in the commercial world, but basic economics tells you that supply and demand have to be matched, otherwise economic activity can't be sustainable. So as much as I believe that corporates have got a lot of responsibility in what has happened and responsibilities to change things moving forward, it's equally a consumer doing in this consumptive behavior that has driven this drive for profit and progression and really just using the earth's resources in a throwaway exploitative manner. Another thing I think that would help is going back to education. So I did a business degree, and I remember a piece by Drucker and Al, and he's a really famous economist, and one of the scripts that we had to use. And in essence, it talks about the basic premise of taking something and finding it as cheaply as you can, and turning it around as quickly as you can, and selling it for as much as you can. Now, if you've got universities educating future business leaders in this use the world kind of manner, then we're always going to have business leaders, through no fault of their own, it's just their education, that are going to sustain this mindset of big corporates to be exploitative. Whereas, if you had the ripple down from Harvard, everybody that's likely to be destined for that sort of career is educated in, the merits of sustainability, how it can be done economically, and then, how to market that to a consumer in a way which is, pragmatic. We all need and want.
Gary, we've lost Linda. Can you hear?
Linda?
I think she's hit a mute button.
Okay.
Oh. I was on a roll and I muted myself. I'm not sure where I got cut off there. But yeah, basically supply and demand. So the corporate and the consumer both need to be in balance and both need to change. And education, business leaders being educated in a way which is more sustainable for the future.
Okay, well, let's not be ungenerous to, I think it's Peter Drucker, because he was maybe from a generation 20 years ago when things were very different. But I sat on the Reuters business call this morning, and it's talk, it's promises, it's not necessarily all going to flow through into commitments, but certainly there's a huge lot of companies there were talking about what they're doing to flow down through their supply chain to ensure sustainability. So the example was given of Mercedes, who I think of committing by 2038 or 2039 to go carbon neutral right through their supply chain, so that it's called Scope 3, where they make the cars. The people, they take Scope 3 is about taking responsibility for the end customer driving your car and your car being carbon neutral. Now, obviously, with an airline, that's quite difficult, but the car manufacturers still, it's a huge commitment. So they're making that commitment. But I think my take on this question is it's really around Brazil and the Amazon. Well, the majority of the Amazon is in Brazil. But my take on this question is that it's really these countries, or most countries in the world, have signed up to the Paris Agreement, which is to commit to keep global warming well below 2 degrees. And I think it's quite simple that if Brazil allows the Amazon to become savanna, which is the risk, it loses its rainfall, it then just becomes dries out like an African prairie, then basically absolutely Brazil will not have fulfilled its criteria, its commitment to that Paris Agreement. So Gary, any take from you on this?
It's sad to hear, and you're in that world all the time, Charles. COVID, we were going to discuss COVID as well today, and the impact that that's had. Any light on that from the webinars and the things that you listen to?
Well, certainly the sentiment is really around this phrase to build back better, build back greener. It's not possible with a lot of the finance, but certainly there's an absolute willingness from business and financiers to make sure that as much as possible is built back greener and better. And I think it makes common sense. There's no point at a time when there's concern about investing in what to invest in from every country in the world, not just the UK. Everyone's worried about what to invest in. There's absolutely no point in carrying on investing in things which are massively CO2 producing. So at the moment, what's the point in buying a diesel car when you know that in a very short while those cars really are going to be unsaleable because people don't want to buy them. And I mean, Honda, in the paper this week, Honda is stopping its diesel cars now. Good. And it's stopping its petrol cars in 2022. So this couple of months you can buy a Honda diesel car 25% off because that's the end of it, right? And then from then on you can't get a diesel car. And so these sort of trends, I mean, these are not minor manufacturers, these are big manufacturers setting the trend. And if they do set that trend, then that sets the way for me. It sets the way to go for the future, and it shows the way for all of us that we need to be doing things in a different way.
I'd love both of your opinions on the news this morning. It was sad to see that all the gains that we've made with making cars greener have been lost by people being at home and they're using carbon to gases and electricity to warm their houses. So we've lost basically 2 years of gain. I'd love your views on that and letting people know. Certainly it made me think, well, let me turn down the temperature, let me put on a jumper rather than turn up the temperature. What's your opinion on this?
I'm going to try and take that Gary. Something that has been really crossing my mind a lot recently is the whole premise of balance. So, very much sort of in the yin and the yang situation, or that premise. So where there's something that's being given back to the environment, such as less pollution from cars because we're staying at home, there's something also being taken away. So I think in all of our work, in trying to make improvement, we have to look at a closed loop. So something that gives to something positively, and it generates something positive out of the end. But it is disappointing news. I heard exactly the same, and sometimes you think, well, I don't know what the answer is for that. Yes, certainly we can all put on a jumper and turn the temperature down, but it does go back to this balance.
It fuels me to want to plant more trees. It fuels me. I'm quite a resilient character. So when something goes wrong, it makes me even more determined to go forward. And I hope people don't see that and give up and think, oh, yeah, no point doing the recycling because it's all lost. I hope that we're going to need resilience to get through this. Charles?
Yeah. Well, I'd question that data. I haven't seen the report, Gary, but I would question that data because we're only in October. I mean, if you're in the middle of December and it's really cold, or the middle of January, that's when the weather's worst. If you're in the middle of January, it's really cold, then yeah, you've got to have the heating on during the day. But having the heating on during the day now, I mean, yes, we might have the heating on a bit in the evening, but I don't know that we need the heating on during the day. So I think the answer is to put there's plenty of people on Zoom wearing pullovers. Wear a pullover,
Do you think the press do enough to really help the environment with the news? Do you think they help, or do you think they hinder?
I think it's a bit of both, but on the whole, it seems to be very doom and gloom. So whenever I hear something about climate change and global warming, the perspective seems to be that it's this sort of hopeless situation, and it's always kind of like it's over there. It's a problem that's over there. So you've got a fire here or a sea rising there, and you know it's very easy for us to be insulated from that. You know, obviously there's people going through the consequences of that worldwide, but it's about really bringing that back down to earth and understanding that we can make positive change. And because if you're in a depressive state about the world, your energy's low and you haven't got the capacity really to think and act and, you know, rinse your recycling as well as you should. You just can't be bothered. If you're in a more enthusiastic mood and you know that your contribution is going to actually be meaningful, you're more likely to tell more people and be energetic and hopeful. And I think that is the mindset change that we need. You know, this is serious, but there is good news out there, and we just don't hear enough about it. And there's a lot of people, you know, they might be campaigning in a way that you know, might not be palatable to a mainstream, but there are a lot of you know, movements out there that don't get publicised as well as the bad news.
Well, thanks, Linda, for that. The word mindset here is really, really important. So, yeah, so I'd like to let me answer this question and then bring in one of Peter Jones, Stanley, Danai, or Ela to ask a question. So if one of you would like to get ready with your question. But what I would say is that absolutely people can do something about it. And to pick up on what Gary said a little bit earlier about planting trees, the first priority absolutely has to be to see how you can cut your CO2 emissions, because this is fundamental. We all have to cut our CO2 emissions or have those emissions cut for us. But having done that, how much of your CO2 emissions are left and what can you do about that? And that's where planting trees is something we can all do. It's really, really easy. You make a donation, no CO2, we plant 9 trees for £1. And so what my wife and I did now a couple of years ago, we each planted 3,500 trees. So we've now got 7,000 trees between us. And it's really good to think, well, look, you know, I have done something to help the planet in that respect. So anybody else who'd like to think about that, take a look at the website and think about planting some trees for yourself. But who'd like to ask a question? So Peter, you're on video. Would you like to ask a question, or someone else? Who'd else like to come on video and ask a question? Peter, you're nodding. You want to have a go?
Yeah, sure. I'm happy to do that. I mean, I take your point about impact, and it's very important that we make all efforts that we can in that area. But in terms of trying to grow what people are doing globally, I mean, I kind of look at there being a 3-stage process. First of all, impact. Secondly, it's about sustainability, because a lot of people start an initiative but can't necessarily keep it going. The costs are too high. It's too difficult to keep it going for various reasons. So I think sustainability is important from a sort of a business perspective. And finally, you know, if it actually is sustainability, we could be looking at things like growth. Maybe there's an education program. People could be looking at things like delegation, getting people involved, more people involved locally, different ways, even to the point of saying, you know, maybe we can get investment. So I'm looking at it as a 3-stage path, and I'm interested, particularly your point of view about the second step, if you like, the sustainability. You know, a lot of small businesses do need help, and I'm wondering about something like a business incubator program that can help smaller businesses to do more of the things that they need to get to the point of sustainability. What's your thought there?
Wow. So Gary, this is one of your favourite areas, isn't it? Do you want to go at this one first?
I do see so many short-term quick fixes put a plaster on it. So for me, Charles is right. I do look at that long-term goal and the sustainability. So if I use the tree example, that how it's. I don't know if you know how they do it in Madagascar. They've got families planting trees, which means that it can be sustainable. It's not just a outsourced company making a quick buck. And I think that's important, that we get people passionate behind this cause. And when we're outsourcing things to corporate companies that just want to make some quick dosh, you know, it's never going to last. You need people like you three, us four, I guess, and the people that are really passionate about that, so they can go there. So Peter, as far as sustainability is concerned, it's the basic, fundamental cornerstone to making this thing happen. Because a quick fix is unlikely to happen. I hope it does, but what do you think, Linda?
Well, I think government initiatives can be quite a driver. So it's interesting to sort of see the ripple effect of, you know, central government down to local government, encouraging all businesses in a local area to become more efficient, for example. So like we've had the home improvement drive for insulations and a more effective use of energy, there is an initiative at that level to, you know, drive businesses into looking at the way that they are consuming in order to just open their doors. So with that generally comes the education. So consultants get involved. You know, there's a load of new roles being created in the construction industry, for example. So most major construction companies need a sustainability officer. It's just de facto, whereas 5 years ago they would have avoided that like the plague. So there is this kind of legislative push that does help generate interest in the, you know, both the private and the public sector. And the more you educate, the more simplified these things and mainstream they become, and necessarily widespread and successful. So hopefully this a ripple effect will continue.
So Gary, what I'd say is that, look, you know, I've been to where you're based in Enfield, and I know that you're part of an amazing community of small businesses in Enfield. So what I would say is, look, if anybody out there is a small business who wants help with what to do with global warming, with reducing their CO2 offsets, whatever, basically drop an email to myself or to Gary, and I know that we've got a community there that'll help. I mean, Peter's nodding. I'm sure that Peter would join in. Linda, I'm sure that you would as well. And Gary, you've got a whole team of people there as well, I know, in Enfield who would help. So just make contact with us, and we can. And
I must say, the passion of anyone under 19 gets it drummed into them, and they really, really care. Around the dinner table, we always talk about how our day went, and I said, how were your day, children, just the other day, and they said, well, we've done another assembly on climate change, and it's become a mantra for them now. So I know we're all over a certain age here, but for the youngsters, we have to do this. And they're very powerful. But I think I don't know how much we empower them to make that difference. With Greta, you see, she's a 1 in a million. But I'd love everyone's opinion on how we can empower the youngsters to make a difference.
Well, let's try and bring in Danai. So Danai's a little bit older than Greta, but a lot younger than some of us. Hi, Danai. Nice to see you.
Hi.
Great. So, do you want to come in on that? Do you want to comment on that? Do you want to ask a question? The floor's yours.
I was actually just about to ask the same question that Gary just asked, because I'm 21, and last year I was a part of Youth for Climate in my home country. However, due to not a lot of engagement, I felt like it didn't go that well. Like, we were protesting all the time, creating documents, giving ideas to the government, to the ministries here and there. However, I think no one was really listening to us. So my question to you, which are obviously more engaged in the topic and everything, is how do we get young people to actually do something other than protest? Because I've been to protests, you know, you shout, you call for what you want for, you give your resolution, but then it stops there. So yeah, I tried myself to add more ideas, you know, press releases and stuff like that, but that's, I mean, I couldn't go further than that.
For me, I think social media, I understand how social media works. And you understand it even better than me. You're of that generation. You can cause such a stir on social media by you know, older people think that if they post something, it will go viral. That's not how it works. The brain of Facebook and Instagram and Google is called the algorithm. So an algorithm is you like, share, and comment. So if you're watching this now live, you would make such a difference to like, share, and comment on this post. And that's what we really need young people to do, to get hold of a hashtag, and it can go global, to set up a YouTube channel, to tag in your local MP, to tag in the Prime Minister. We have that power to shame people into action. You'll be amazed at how social media is so powerful when you've got 500,000 subscribers, and that probably feels like a mile away to you, but it happens pretty quickly. So my answer would be, you are the most empowered generation ever. When I was 16, I certainly couldn't create a headline. You are so lucky to be in the position you are. So you know how to use social media properly. Make something go viral by liking, sharing, commenting, educating older people to say it's just not about making content. So that's what my answer would be to you. You are very fortunate to be in a world that's so connected.
Well, there you are. So, Peter, what do you think?
Yeah, the thing is, Dan, recently, because of ironically, because of COVID, a lot of people have been talking to one another on WhatsApp, for example. There are a lot of groups of people who want to do things. I agree with you, it's difficult to get people to do things other than complain, but you can do things. For example, in your local area, there are groups of people who are actually doing something positive. Thing is that because you're already looking for them. So at some point you're going to find those groups of people and you're going to be able to actually join them and do something positive. It's got a lot easier in that respect because of things like WhatsApp. There are Facebook groups where you can go. I'm actually an admin on a very large Facebook group where, you know, we are conscious of the ecology issue that we have. We've been talking about it for a long time. We're amazed to see David Attenborough do the things that he does, and thank God for that. So there are ways to join in with more positive movements where people are not just complaining, not just talking, they're actually doing positive things. I think going back to what Linda said, the councils, our local councils, are usually quite good at spotting people who are actually doing positive things in the local neighbourhood. So it might be an idea to go back to your local council and see if there are some groups that they might recommend where you can actually join in.
So, Linda, you're a great campaigner. What's your advice from campaigning experience to a younger campaigner?
Well, you know, first of all, I just wanted to congratulate you for taking action and just doing something, because, you know, it's brave to have a voice and, you know, keep going. It will have made a difference. I think that from my experience, the intention needs to be right. So, you know, if you're thinking outside of, well, what is it that I'm trying to do, and you're doing it, well, what is it that I can actually give to the community? It kind of brings it to you in a different way, and it draws community into that initiative, which is bigger than just what you are trying to achieve. but going back to what is it we can do about education? There's a brilliant expression that I've or a saying that I've heard. If your plan is for 1 year, plant rice. If your plan is for 10 years, plant trees. And if your plan is for 100 years, educate children. And it just makes sense. So when I ask my 7-year-old what it is that we can do to help the planet, she's got, it's the most beautiful, slightly naive, obviously, but most simple view. Well, we just need to stop consuming less. So we just use less and we throw less away, Mummy. And it's just really simple.
Think about dragging her out the kitchen, Linda, and she can come.
Yeah, I know. Kids are genius because they haven't got all this chatter that we've got about, this massive picture of whatever. And sometimes, so keep it simple, do it with the right spirit. I think force it never works. It never does. You have to draw people in, and just keep going and find a community that can help you. What Peter was saying is absolutely right. There's tons of people out there that want to make a difference, and every little helps.
And you're from Cyprus, right? So I'm Cypriot too. And you inspire me that you're from an island less than 1 million people, and you're actually doing something about it. But mate, I don't know, and correct me if I'm wrong, you might feel frustrated that it doesn't feel that they're as progressive. But I live in London, and I see people throwing things away or being wasteful, and then it's just as bad here. The UK have a terrible record for keeping the planet less fossil fuel burning and the rest of it. So you're inspiring me, truly. Think about what's newsworthy. On Twitter, there's a hashtag called Journo Request, and it's journalists from all over the world looking for stories. You could create such a great story from a tiny island that you're changing the world. More so than us in London or us in the UK. It's not a big story. If you can pick things up from the beach or reduce the carbon footprint of Cyprus, that's a big story because you're coming from a small place. So I'm really proud of you for what you're doing. Honestly.
That's amazing. So, Dana, you got some terrific answers here. I mean, I would just add one more, which is really the focus point. I mean, absolutely totally behind what everybody said, what Gary said, Peter and Linda as well, Gary said about social media. But I think for me, the focus point is very, very important. I mean, if you've got something in the news which is sliding down the scale, and it's going off the agenda. Well, think about why is that going off the agenda, and who are the people involved who can really make a difference with what you want on the agenda, and what's the right way of putting it across. So this is the sort of the strategic selling marketing angle as to how to make something happen. I mean, the wonderful example that I know from years ago is that there was a time when Coca-Cola had a small glass bottle, and it was do you remember? It was a really sort of regarded as a sexy little glass bottle, and Pepsi Cola were desperate. They had no idea how to beat this, and it went on for about 7 or 8 years, and suddenly they had a data breakthrough. And the data breakthrough is that if you had more carbonated fizzy sugary drinks in your fridge, the more you had, the more people would drink. And so the whole industry turned on its head. It went to these huge, horrible 2-3 litre size drinks, and that's what people bought. And hence Pepsi Cola evened up the battle, because the Coca-Cola bottle could not be rebuilt into that size. So basically they got themselves on a level playing field between Pepsi and Coke, and it meant they could sell more stuff. And that's an example of a strategic button they had to press, and it took 7 years to make the difference. So, you've got some time, Danai, to sit back, work out what your strategy is, where the real pressure points are that make a difference, and then apply what the rest of the team here has said. You're getting rocket propelled.
Thank you very much for your feedback. It's really much appreciated.
Okay, Peter, you're back.
Just
I'm
wondering
wondering
as
if
well
anyone
about-
else has some questions that are in the wings and you're silently watching. If I hope this is of interest, and I find this so fascinating. Please like, share, and comment. It really is important that we get this message out. Has anyone got any questions that is just on the side and you want to come in? You've got these experts here. Oh, Peter, go for it.
Yeah, I was just wondering. I go back to what I said earlier about WhatsApp groups. One of the nice things that we can do now, if we've met, let's say, in an arena like this in Zoom, we can actually, if we sort of talk and say, look, do you want to carry on the conversation? Because Charles has made some great suggestions for Danai, but wouldn't it be great if we could support Danai even at a distance? Because we've all got this amazing technology called WhatsApp. So if Danai has, sort of things that she wants to do locally or questions that she wants to ask, we could be there for her because, we've got the grey hairs to kind of go along with it. And hopefully that also means there's some wisdom. But, if we can help.
So Peter,
like
let's talk about the pros and cons for that. So the pros of having I'll go with the negative first. Negative first. WhatsApp group is limited to, I think, 300, 400 people. You can't have
250.
250, so even less. So that's a con. And then great, but it's hard to get a flow on the timeline. Sometimes I can look at my WhatsApp group, there's 300 messages, and you just think, oh, do you know what? Blow it. I won't worry about what's behind me. I think a Facebook group, a common interest group, is a really, really good idea. It's free, and it will find you people to bring in. So there are the pros of a WhatsApp group is, of course, it's very private. You won't get extremists in there that disrupt things, and they're trolls and pornography and all the horrible things that come with the internet. But I think if you're still watching this, that start a Facebook group, and Facebook set up groups so common interests can talk to each other, and then people can come in. You can ring fence the thing by asking questions before you get inside. Personally, I think that could work, but both will work. I just being open-minded to all the technology. Stanley might have some opinion on this.
Stanley.
I mean, it's nice to basically hear all the views, and in the current circumstances, the way we are working is that we've got so many tiny factions of groups, of opinions, of agendas, of channels. And today's companies or today's movements are moving to something called an omni-channel way of doing stuff, where you can integrate your WhatsApps, you can integrate your Telegram.
Could you repeat that again?
Omni-channel.
Omni-channel.
Oh, omni-channel means all of it.
Yeah.
So, for example, if you have a problem with Airbnb or with KLM, for example, you can either reach them on WhatsApp personally, or you can go on the phone, or you can go on the email, and you've got more and more companies are basically you looking at that for communication, because it means you can communicate from any way that is available. If you don't have internet, you could pick up the phone, and people are trying to solve that. The other thing, the other ways people are trying to solve problems are using technology. So what we mean by that is, because the communication between human beings are so, it's so isolated, it's basically becoming harder and harder for people to aggregate all the information that's going on and figure out what's going on. So if there's a movement in Cyprus, nobody can see what is going on in Cyprus, because the way the news flows, we sell stories, we sell what is recent, we sell what is interesting, we sell what we think is useful. And funnily enough, bad stories get a 4-in-1 chance over a good story, which is
Absolutely.
so. First of all, you're in a system in today's world which makes it very hard for what Charles is trying to do, of Linda has a view which is positive, or for example, a young lady who probably where the future is going to be, because we might live another 10, 20, 30 years, but she's got a lifetime, and she's starting at a disadvantage just being young, because not only is her education more expensive, not only is her purchasing power limited, but she's in a much harder position than us, but she's got the energy. And the other thing is, she can probably think better than us. Most of us, like I noticed, Gary said, "Oh, use Facebook." Peter said, "Use WhatsApp." So just in in a room of 5, you've got 2 different opinions. And I have been discussing a few things with Charles, with Peter, and I'm trying to break my head as to how we can get impact, because one thing is how can you get impact, and the other bit is how you can get scale, because that is the bit that is kind of missing in trying to get most of the different movements together. And one thing which is common is everyone wants to be heard in some way or the other, because if you're not heard, you feel you're not part of it. And there are some people who are actually doing some good things, and those good things are not being passed on to each other. So just growing trees is good, but if I live in Africa and basically I have no means to buy the firewood, I'm just going to go to the forest and cut another tree till I have no trees left. If I know better than trying to farm in a farm, and I'm just trying to use chemicals, and I've got only 10 seasons of my soil left, and there are techniques which take 3 years. If I'm in a poor position, or if profit is my only motive, it's going to be hard. So first of all, the system that we have in place is something that we need to figure if we can basically tackle in a different way. Because even if the example that was given was Mercedes is going to make a difference by 2038, I mean, do we have enough time? And if Mercedes is making changes, can people like Danny afford a Mercedes when which is clean? Or if she's in Africa, and the technology is not there, can they afford a Tesla at $90,000 or $100,000? So one of the main reasons that we have all these problems is because we've got poverty. And if we don't elevate that poverty, we could be doing whatever we can. I mean, England compared to the rest of the world is a little bit more advanced in how we are trying to do our stuff. But we are making such a small dent that in the end, I think we are solving the problems at a micro level in areas where possibly we might make a dent and we're doing it well. But we're not able to basically then take that and make a difference in other parts of the world where people are poor, they are not educated, they're not, and like Linda said, it takes a lot of time. Now, that's another question that I'm trying to answer right now. How can we speed up this process? Because it's not an easy answer. And
Stanley, I might have got something for you there. So I've just stumbled across this. It's a similar way of thinking. Have you heard of the Earth Charter? The United Nations Earth Charter.
I've seen some of the bits that the United Nations is doing. Also, I've seen some of the work that B Corp is trying to do for education. I've seen a few of the initiatives. The only point I'm trying to make is these initiatives are good. They're very regimented, but how can we then get the adoption across? Because that is the key.
Well, see, this is just it. So I'm in inquiry with this. I don't have the answer to it, but it occurs to me that, so I've got a copy of the Earth Charter in front of me, and it was, so it was published by the UN in 2002, and in there it addresses all of the things that you've just talked about. So respect and care for the community of life. So this is talking about human and non-human, irrespective of location. Ecological integrity. So how we conduct business, and how we as human beings feel we have the right to control nature, and we've got the right to do everything when Mother Nature can probably do a better job. Social and economic justice, globally, and democracy, non-violence and peace. So this United Nations document it covers everything, and all the premises are there that we're talking about. And I think that, you know, when I feel myself going there sometimes, it's like, you know, I want to make a difference. Well, what can I do that is different? Because things don't seem to be making a difference. But why do I have to find something that's actually unique or different when there is a document written by the United Nations, by some of the best brains in the world, and it's not been adopted? So there's some local government, some schools, some, you know, whole counties all across the world that have adopted this thing. But why haven't we taken it since 2002 and really tried to make a difference with it? What was wrong with its adoption? Because the premise of it is beautiful, it's all complete, and we don't really need any new ideas on top of that. So there's something that's wrong in terms of the way this stuff filters down. And just to give another example, you know, it was in this sort of search for, well, what are government doing about it? And I was reading the agricultural policy and the environmental bill. And actually, there's some really good stuff in there. All these things, ideas, I was thinking, well, I'm going to do this with my local community, and I'm going to plant wildflowers and pollinators and yada, yada. It's all in this document. And actually, so at central level, there is this awareness, but it's all about stopping talking about it and actually getting it done and implementing it. And do we need to create new ideas? Well, something's not working. It's about us actually doing. And this participation and communication mechanisms could be something about it. But there's something about human nature, I think, that we're all called, whether we want to or not, we're all caught up in it somehow. And we just need a mainstream change to how we are as human beings in order to, you know, not feel as if we've just got this right over planet Earth to do whatever we want to it. It's a shift in consciousness.
Okay, Linda, well, you're well ahead of me here with this UN Charter. Be good to hear what the situation is. You know, did it get put forward? What's the status of it? I mean, there's a recent document which I think is very important, which is the World Leaders Pledge for Nature. So this is very recent. It's a pledge rather than regulations, but there's an awful lot of stuff in there that I feel we can hold world leaders across the world to account about. So 70 world leaders, mainly the UK and Europe, have signed up for this, and certainly it's something we can do. But I'd like to talk a little about Stan's point. You know, the company and complexity the size of Mercedes, I would think my reaction was I felt they were really doing a pretty good job if they're committing to go carbon neutral by 2038 or whatever. But what we don't hear about in this country is some of the other forms of transport. I mean, when I went to Thailand, I mean, everyone there is on motorbikes, and these motorbikes, they're Chinese copies of the original Japanese design, a 50cc, and because they're Chinese copies, they don't work as well as the Japanese one do. So the roads are completely full of fumes. So in the UK, there's no point in people majoring on having electric motorbikes because the number of people using them is very, very low. But across the world, the number of people who are using motorbikes, these are people who are step up from the poorest. They're working, they're traveling 20, 30, 50 miles a day each way to work and back. So in loads and loads of countries of the world, Indonesia, Thailand, Vietnam, all these sort of places, massive, massive market for motorbikes. And basically, you know, it's very simple to me. If you can make an electric car, it's a hell of a lot easier to make an electric motorbike. And you don't have so much of a problem of charging it up because you can charge it at work. We've all seen the hotel car parks in these countries where, you know, there's a million motorbikes, all of which could be charged up during the day, or simple cable to charge them up at home. It can make a huge difference across the world, probably maybe even more difference than electric cars can make. And there's already electric motorbikes in some parts of the world. So for me, it's horses for courses. And once the world really sets itself in the direction of of doing something about it, then all these different countries can come in their own way, implementing solutions that are relevant for them.
Can I say something? Or
Sure.
okay. So the main issue in any part of the world is the solutions have to be affordable. So, for example, if I have agriculture and water is a resource that I need, and if my water census costs me $450 and I'm trying to plant in Africa, unless my sensors are basically available for $1 or $2, there's no chance in hell that those people can use them. The same thing for transportation. And the reason Henry Ford basically was successful was not because he made cars, but because he made cars affordable. And when you make things affordable, there's still profit, there's still consumption, there's still a fair share. So what we are not really having right now in the world, trying to answer Linda's question about how the UN has put together something, and we've still not adopted it. The reason is because we've been sold into a system that is looking at the maximum profit and not looking at it from the point of affordability throughout the world, because all of us are living at different price points. All of us have got different clothes. Now, we also being sold fashion. So we buy clothes and, we basically say, okay, it's the latest collection. We're not slowing down our fashion. And, even if I use my clothes, there's no system in place that I have my wardrobe of clothes. If I want to get it to people who are in another part of the planet, if I've got to transport it, it's going to cost me more to transport the clothes all the way out there. And there are certain issues. I've seen these issues also in certain farms in Zambia that I'm trying to work on, that if he needs to get his glass bottles to plant his, to supply his moringa, he needs to pay 5 times the price in South Africa versus, a fifth of the price from China. So he has to transport it from, a place which is basically going to have a global footprint, which is necessary. So the issue is not governments or not whether the will is not there or whether the solutions are not there, but how we can basically build local and easy solutions for people using tech, using knowledge, and actually having the solutions in place. And it's not going to be a one-step kind of solution just by saying, okay, it's trees or this, but it's going to be a more holistic understanding of how the world is all about. If the UN wanted to solve this, they could have solved this a long time ago. But unfortunately, the way the world is, we are all thinking, and we are thinking in small pockets of air. We are little bubbles, And then once that talk is over, the bubbles burst and that's it. Nobody hears anything. So it's like blowing bubbles in the air. Those bubbles pop and then that's it. So if we really, really want to be impactful, we need those bubbles to fuse and figure out how we can grow those bubbles to be together, understand how we can collaborate, understand how those impacts can be made, use those guidelines, understand those guidelines. I was glancing through Charles's Save Our Planet kind of website for the first time a couple of days ago. And I was amazed that he's got so many resources and it's well mapped out and stuff like that. I've met Charles very recently. So for me, it's not about trying to build everything that Charles has done again, but to see how much I can leverage from it and see how much I can basically use Charles and the Lindas and the Garys and the little Dannys of the world to come together and see how we can have more positive impact, so that at the end of the day, if Enfield is teaching me something and it's a good example of how it can go, why is it that I can't basically take that to Queensland in Australia, where we've got originals living there and they're being called drunks, and how can I teach them to make a change? So today, with today's tech, with today's reach, with today's social media, with the fact that you can be omnichannel, you can use omni-channel ways. It's about trying to understand how we can go past this really difficult system that we have in place, which is robbing us of the inertia to make change. Because there is a there is a will, but there's no inertia. And it goes back to this question that Charles was asking me. Why are people not doing? It's because, yes, there is a will, but there's no inertia. And we need to create that certain amount of inertia. And so it's something I've been thinking, unfortunately, only across the last 5 months or so. Peter's probably been talking about the WhatsApp groups more because, I've been using the WhatsApp groups to try and understand what the problems are. I've been reaching out to tech. I've been reaching out to areas like artificial intelligence to understand how systems work, how communications can be done better in scale. Because, we as human beings, if you're one, today, people like Facebook have created monsters called artificial intelligence, where they can basically be used for a certain amount of dollars, not only to influence elections. So the question is, can't we use those same systems to influence movements? Because even if we say we want to put a like, at the end of the day, the algorithms at Facebook will only make a difference if those likes are actually producing a certain number of ad dollars to them. Otherwise, those likes are just buried, and you can't fight against that wall.
Stanley, you're so right. I was just watching their top person that keeps us addicted. It's very, very powerful. Now, the thing is, you had me entranced in your talk, but I don't know if you know this about me, Linda. I go to schools, I do talks for young people, and I say to them, only do what you're passionate about. And they say, but sir, how will we know what we're passionate about? I say, there's a very easy formula. Just look at your watch if time goes by quickly. Now, I have to say, we've been here an hour, and the program was only ever an hour. I'm gonna publicly praise Charles. Charles has been doing these for nearly 2 years. So if we say that there'll be another one in a fortnight's time, because we can talk and talk and talk, but the show really was only scheduled for an hour, and it excites me that there's so much to talk about. Charles, should we round off our show here today?
Let me just make a comment, and then I don't know Bella Allen, who's come on now, if Bella would want to speak before we finish off. But what I would like just to say is that I think we've had an amazing productive call today, because we've got tree planting, which is a base solution which anybody can do, and anybody across the world can sign up to plant some trees, and it takes CO2 out of the air and it creates work. Coming out of the discussion that led by Peter earlier, then I feel that based on, Gary, where you are in Enfield, then yes, we can collectively, we can help small businesses with their CO2 emissions. And so any small business that you're listening to this, now we're in recording, do make contact with myself at noco2.org or with Gary, and we'll see how we can help you. And also, what I'm hearing with Stanley is that Stanley is willing to take a lead in driving some action, and that would be absolutely amazing if Stanley, if you can get something going, because you sound to me like a real driver and leader of activity. And Linda, you put on the table a foundation document that can make a difference. And what I heard Danai earlier say is that Danai really wants to make a difference and was listening to and asking for advice from all of us on how to make it happen.
She apologized, actually. She had to go to lecture.
So in an hour, I think we've achieved quite a lot. What do you think, Linda?
I think we've done a grand job.
And we were global.
The whole contribution has been amazing. Very rounded, lots of things to consider. And, it's exciting, and we ought to keep it that way.
So Bella, do you want to chip in? Otherwise, maybe Gary's going to close us down.
Not that I want to. I think today's been really good. We keep up the consistency. If I will try and connect with everyone. We'll create a WhatsApp group. We'll create a Facebook group. We'll do whatever it takes. All ideas are worth trying, and then when they don't work, you stop them, right? So let's try and connect everyone together. But this will happen again in a fortnight's time with Charles' approval. Are you good with that?
Absolutely, yeah. And just before we go, everybody do please think about what it is that you can do to take action to help stop global warming. It's clear our government in the UK, governments across the world are not doing enough. So for now, just give some thought to what you can do. The idea came up earlier is to link what you're doing to some of the climate emergencies that are going on in local authority areas. That really is a great idea because there's a load of people there who are already fired up thinking about it in the same way as you are. So do think about what you can do. Let's get together in a couple of weeks. So Gary, over to you.
I'm proud to be part of this. If you're watching it, please like, share, comment, tell a friend, and there's lots that you can do. Feel empowered to make a difference. So good night, everyone, and we'll see you in a fortnight's time. Thank you.
Okay, see you guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you,
Bye.
everyone.